What's up, fans and gamers alike? This is Josh Rockstar, and I'm giving you my first impressions of Team Sonic Racing. Now, I got an early copy of the game, and I wanted to let you guys know what I think about the game. And as you can see, this is my progress so far. To give you a little bit of an idea of how much this is, I've spent about 5 hours in the Team Adventure mode, and spent about 3 to 4 hours playing a combination of single player and split screen gameplay in local play. Now, I haven't spent any time in online multiplayer, so I'll be making a separate video dedicated to talking about how the online multiplayer feels. So subscribe to the channel so you can catch that video. But without further ado, let's jump into the first impressions of Team Sonic Racing. Now, the question on everybody's mind is, how does the co-op gameplay feel for this game? And let me tell you, the gameplay is a lot of fun. It's easy to pick up and play, yet there is a couple of nuances to figure out, and the game doesn't overburden you with mechanics that you need to figure out at the beginning. In other words, it has a very slight learning curve, and you can jump in, play a couple races, and understand how to play the game. The game has a great sense of speed, and you'll feel like you're going fast as you're ripping up these tracks. Everything runs really smoothly at 1080p, 60 frames per second, with very minimal slowdowns when it comes to a few parts of the game, particularly in the PS4 base version. I noticed in a couple of levels there were some times where the game would slow down just a little bit. Not very much, but enough to notice the change in frame rate. But this is only happening in a couple levels at a couple of moments of the game. In terms of the whole package, it's not happening very frequently. The frame rate dips are a lot more noticeable when you're playing split screen multiplayer, but that's okay, as a lot of kart racers end up having this kind of problem. At its core, this gameplay is made for multiplayer play, and it's a blast when you get together with 2 or 3 friends and just have that team experience, working together to finish the race in first, working together to get that 1, 2, 3 podium spot. However, if I could criticize one thing about the game, is the over-reliance on the team ultimate mechanic, because I think that it's the most OP part of the experience, and once you do get that mechanic, it's smooth sailing. But if your opponent does get that mechanic towards the end of the race, you can see them blow past you and get the 1, 2, 3 win, even though you've been holding down first place the whole race. It's just something that breaks the balance of the gameplay, and it's a little bit too powerful. Moving on to the graphics of the game, everything looks absolutely bright and vibrant. You know, that kind of look you can expect from a Sonic game. And I really like that they've gone back to the kind of look from Sonic Adventure and Sonic Heroes, maybe a little bit of inspiration from Generations. It's just, everything is completely bright, completely vibrant. The character models look great, their karts look sleek and aerodynamic, or like tank-like, and everything just graphically, this game is solid. And the tracks themselves are huge visual spectacles with huge set pieces from different games, from past Sonic games, and they just, nice nostalgia trips, nice callbacks to those games, and the tracks play great and are a lot of fun. In the track design, there's a lot of wide open spaces, as well as a lot of interesting turns and loop-de-loops and anti-gravity sections that'll keep you on the edge of your seat as you're racing through it. Some of my favorites include Mother's Canyon, Bingo Party, Ice Mountain, Sand Road, and Booze House. All are really well designed tracks that are super memorable even after a few times racing through them. In terms of the overall package of the tracks, it's great, but I do feel like there needs to be a couple more challenging tracks added to the mix, as I feel like a lot of the tracks do focus on going straight and then making a couple of turns, instead of some other games where they have like a lot more challenging turns that you need to maneuver through. It's more focused on speed and combat, as opposed to outright tracks that are going to give you a challenge. And speaking of combat, I kind of feel like the weapons don't feel as intuitive, especially if you're trying to start this game and pick it up. I think like it's cool that they have the wisps, but there's no real indication of what each weapon does, aside from like the loading screens. So it's a lot of trial and error, and a lot of the weapons you kind of just have to try and then remember what they do. They have most of the mainstays that you can find in other kart racers, but still overall I feel like the weapon system is a little weak in this game. Now let's switch gears to the customization found in the game, in which I feel like the performance parts are really great, as they allow the player to change the stats of the cars in a way that suits the player's playstyle. I was able to almost maximize the stat that I want by sacrificing some points in another stat, and also keeping some other stats a little more middle of the road, and I was able to always get the mix that I want for the character I'm playing. And in the 3 classes, you can definitely get a mix of what you want out of that character and have the best parts of that class at the same time. The game features a solid amount of paints, decals, and horns in which you're able to pimp out your ride various degrees. I still haven't unlocked everything through the mod pods yet, but from what I unlocked playing through the game, you can definitely trick out your ride to look amazing, and there's so many different kinds of options, including different textures of the decals, different paint styles, including like a brushed metal look, or a plasticky look, or a carbon fiber look. There is a lot of micro customization to be found here. Speaking of the mod pods, I have one issue with it, and that's the fact that you do get duplicates as you play the game, which is really annoying because now it's really based in RNG in terms of getting the decals and the paints and the performance parts that you want. And it could be really annoying when you have a couple left and now you're rolling stuff that you've already had before. So I really find that to be a detriment to unlocking stuff in the mod pods, and it's really annoying and one thing I don't like about the game. Now let's talk about audio and precisely how great the soundtrack is in this game. The tracks in the game are all created by Crush40, who's created a plethora of Sonic tunes in the game, and they've perfectly themed the tracks to the environment, and they weren't afraid to get experimental and try these awesome new sounds for these awesomely themed tracks, and they did a fantastic job. It's one of my favorite parts of the game, and it's absolutely a joy to listen to each and every track as you're racing through the game. Adding to that is the sound effects and how well balanced between the soundtrack and the sound effects the mix is, as I think they complement each other. Some examples include the sound of your motor, the weapons when they hit somebody, when you drop rings, that iconic sound is there. Everything just sounds really good in the mix, and you'll notice it as you race that everything just sounds great. Like from an audio standpoint, the game sounds great. Although it's my personal preference that I really don't like the voice actors they chose for this. I think I prefer the old sounds of some of the characters, especially when it comes to characters like Shadow and Sonic. I really didn't like the voice acting all that much, but that's my own personal preference. Other people may like the new voice acting better. But there was no issues when it came to race time, and they're trash talking each other, and hearing them inside of the race sounded great, especially with the level of competitiveness that the trash talking and the in-game dialogue adds to the whole experience. And the last thing I want to talk about in this video is the team adventure mode, which I feel very negatively about, and I think it's one of the weaker parts of the whole package. I'm on chapter 5 out of 7, so I haven't finished the whole thing yet, but based on those 5 chapters, I've sort of felt like it's sort of a missed opportunity, and it feels like it's phoned in instead of feeling like a fleshed out full mode. Now in the first 1 or 2 chapters, I really felt it was fun. I was working towards getting the objectives, I was getting the keys, and I was having a blast doing it. I got to play some of the new challenges that were featured in the game, and it was so far a good experience. Now it wasn't until about like chapter 3 or 4 where I started to see tracks starting to repeat themselves over and over again. The objectives weren't changing very much, they were sort of staying the same, and I was starting to get a little bored with it. I felt like I was just completing the same kind of races over and over again and doing the same challenges over, and it just started to feel a little monotonous. The game's overarching story really doesn't help to push you through this and give you a reason to play through it, as I feel like it's really bad. The story is done through text box with voiceover on top and no cutscenes, and it's all feels like it's really phoned in and really half-assed. The button you would normally press to enter a race tells you to enter the race and skip the story. Meanwhile, what you have to do is actually press square to watch the story and enter the race. So I feel like this game is just making the story portion and this mode an afterthought compared to the overall experience, and it really didn't feel great. I'm going to finish it, but I'm really not looking forward to finishing it. The special timed challenges are a lot of fun, and I wish there was a lot more of them in the team adventure to break up the pacing of the races and Grand Prix, and I wish they would incorporate some of that into the challenges of the actual races. So while you're racing, you're going after these targets, or you need to get a certain amount of rings. I just wish the team adventure had a lot more of that, as it would have kept it interesting as you're going into the later chapters of the adventure mode. Another thing that could keep this mode more interesting is more unlockables. Aside from unlocking the characters that are already unlocked in local play anyways, this game is missing extra characters, it's missing a lot more stuff other than the stuff you get in the Mod Pods section. And it would have been a great thing to keep me more interested in playing the team adventure mode and give me a sense of progression, because right now I don't feel like I have a sense of progression from this mode, and that's its biggest problem. In terms of the overall package, I feel like team adventure is a blight on it, and I'm gonna see how much better it's gonna get, but I don't feel it's gonna get much better than what it's offered me already. So those are my first impressions of Team Sonic Racing, based on 5 hours playing the adventure mode and about 4 hours playing local play between myself and split screen. And overall, I feel it's a good package that's still missing something, and I can't really put my finger on what it's missing. I still have some team adventure left to play, I still have some stuff to unlock, and I have the online multiplayer to look forward to, which I plan to make a separate video talking about it. So be sure to subscribe to the channel to catch that video and more Team Sonic Racing content that I plan to have on the channel. My name is Josh Rockstark, and peace out.